Audio on. There you go. We are now live. Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Hart, and I am a Google certified innovator and work as a consultant around education and technology at Unstuck Learning Design. On. There you go. We are now live. Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Hart, and there we go. Slight technical problem there. This is my son Matt, and he is going to be helping me with Google Classroom. So Matt, do you want to take your seat at the Chromebook? You must forgive me because I've got a little bit of a cold. I think I'm almost dying, but I've been told it's just a small cold. And I am going to try and, if I end up coughing and stuff, I really do apologize. It's been a bit of a rough day on that, but I'm really excited to talk to you today about Classroom, Google Classroom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my slides, and what I'd love you guys to do, and I can see that Rachel and Cheryl have already started doing this, there is a chat option, and Gavin's just dropped in as well. There's a chat option next to the live video, so please feel free to add in your comments and questions in that chat option, and my assistant Matt will be managing that and telling me if there are any questions that I need to answer immediately. Otherwise, I will try and answer questions towards the end as well. Just a little hint for you: if you find the quality of your video isn't great, just move your mouse, the arrow cursor, over the cogwheel on settings on your actual video and make sure it's set to at least probably 480p. So it actually defaults for some reason YouTube to a low bandwidth. So if you just go over the settings cog, click on that, and then improve your bandwidth up to like 480p or 720p, whatever you've got. But yeah, that'll help with some of it. So I'm going to now screen share. Test screen do, and jump into the slide deck. So we have a bit of a Doctor Who effect to start off with. And I'm just going to take us through a few little things. I will be jumping in and out of the slides as we go along. But as I say, once again, welcome to this webinar. This is Classroom as Mission Control. And particularly, I want to focus on Learning Commons today. So this idea of Learning Commons as a place where we can gather together as a community to learn. So I'm going to give you just a couple of updates first up. Oh, sorry, our agenda first. Going to give you some Google updates, a couple of those coming. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what is Classroom in very kind of broad strokes, and then a very brief demo of how to set up Classroom. Then we're going to get into the really juicy things for me, I think, is how do we create Classroom as a learning commons? How do we make learning visible in Classroom? And also, how do we capture evidence of learning in large projects? So I'm a really passionate believer in inquiry-based learning and longer-term projects for students and learners. And it's really important that we capture evidence of learning in these projects. I'm going to talk to you about that as well. So just a couple of updates from Google. If you haven't seen this yet, first things first, is the upcoming webinars. If you're here, it's probably because you have registered for this webinar, and therefore you may have registered for the next two coming up as well. There is a little URL link here. If you haven't registered for the following webinars, please go to that link, and please feel free to share that link with your colleagues. On the 18th of May at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time and 7 p.m. New Zealand Standard Time, we will be hearing from Mr. Paul Peterson at Bombay School in New Zealand, and their incredible journey of using accessing technology, G Suite and Chromebooks to improve learning outcomes for students in quite a rural area of New Zealand. So that's actually running a little bit earlier, so that we make sure we kind of hit the New Zealand audience as well. So 5 p.m. Australian time, 7 p.m. New Zealand time. And then the 15th of June, 6 p.m. And 8 p.m. in New Zealand, we will be empowering learners in a Chromebook school. This is two fantastic guys, Ian and Tim at Amaru School in the ACT. And they're going to be talking to us about, going to be certainly talking about learning in Chromebooks and G Suite, but actually also looking at how pastoral and school management and empowering of students to use technology to solve problems. And that's going to be, both of these are going to be really exciting. So please make sure you register for those. Okay. If you were, or if you have in the past used Google Earth, you'll know that you had to download it, and it was a wonderful platform, and still is a wonderful platform. But something very exciting happened this week. Google Earth has just been redone and relaunched, so it now works in a browser, which for you guys who are out there using Chromebooks is a wonderful thing, because you can now access Google Earth entirely through the browser on your Chromebook and still have some of the incredible things that you can use with Google Earth now through the browser without downloading any additional software. So I'm going to show you very quickly the 3D view and the Voyager guided tours. So I'm just going to jump into Google Earth over here, just reload it. So as you see now, it actually loads in browser, which is wonderful. It is an incredible tool to really get students and learners highly curious about the world around them. And there is a wonderful YouTube video. Actually, if I remember, I'll put a link to it in the description of this video, which tells you how they do this and how many layers of satellite imagery and photography there are involved in creating Google Earth. So this is what it now looks like. So if I were to search for somewhere, so I'm sitting in Melbourne at the moment. So if I was to search for Melbourne, Victoria, it will find Melbourne, Victoria, and it will zoom in and show us Melbourne, Victoria. This little knowledge card. So when you do a Google search, and at the side you do a search on anything, I guess, and it generates a knowledge card, often drawing things from Wikipedia. It now does that within Google Earth, which is really cool. And if I now want to zoom in a little bit on the CBD, if you guys don't know, I'm currently sitting about here, but let's have a little look at the CBD. If you guys have never visited Melbourne, you really should. It's a wonderful, wonderful city. And as I zoom in, you can see that it starts to re-render. So there are many layers of images, and it takes a few seconds to render in the detail, but the closer you get down, the higher the level of detail. Now, what's really, really cool about Google Earth, and as I say on this YouTube video, which explains how they did it, the incredible computer-generated algorithms which map these aerial photographs onto 3D images. Let me just get rid of this knowledge card for a tick. So if I now click on the 3D mode, I now get pulled down like this. And for me, that is an incredible, actually quite scary view of the city. So if you've never visited Melbourne, or you've never visited Paris, or you've never visited Manhattan, you can now actually go and visit it in 3D. So it's an incredible view and an incredible thing for kids to actually go and have a look and visit places that they might not otherwise be able to visit. There are two other quick features that I'm going to share with you. So on the left-hand side here, we do have Voyager. And if you click on Voyager, you've actually got the editor's pick. You've got travel, nature, culture, and history. And these are actually kind of curated. So if I was to go to the Natural Treasures BBC Earth, I actually can go off and see exploration of some of our natural treasures. And if I start exploring, you can see the pins have appeared on the map. And this is all based on the Planet Earth 2 with David Attenborough. So it's really, really high quality curated information. So if I want to click on the Sloth Islands, they have images, and you can go through images. You get then these beautiful images of sloth. You then get some more information. Some of them, I should have double checked to see which ones do. Yeah, this one, for example. Oh, in fact, this is that really famous image. That's a really famous video of the lizard escaping from all of these snakes, which comes from that documentary. So what Google Earth have done is partnered with some incredible people and who did these documentaries, and David Attenborough, and actually brought them together. So you can watch the documentary about the lizards in the Galapagos in situ, so you actually know where that is all happening, so you can zoom right in and have a look at the Earth. So I thought it was definitely worth sharing that with you, because that's just come out this week as an incredible update to Google Earth. And when we're talking about getting kids curious about learning, it's a wonderful thing to have a look at. There are some other webinars happening. I'll put the link into the description as well. There is a specific webinar done by our friends at EdTech Team and John Bailey from Google Geo, and I'm not sure when that is, but I'll put the link into the chat, into the description as well. So you can, if you want more information about Google Earth, you can certainly jump on that. Okay, So let's get on then with what we are here to talk about, which is Google Classroom. So Google Classroom is a fantastic, around 18 months, maybe 2 years even now, addition, which kind of came into the G Suite collection of tools in order to really give a platform, because Drive itself is wonderful for sharing and creating docs and creating slides and sheets and sharing them, but it kind of was missing a platform for learners. So essentially Google Classroom is this. I've got a diagram for you. I always find diagrams help. Is in Drive, you've got sheets, you've got docs, you've got slides, you've got mind maps, you've got Google Forms, you've got all these incredible tools to create learning resources. And you obviously also love here. So I love Pegman from Google Maps, and he does turn up and he turns up as she as well in many different guises. So you do have docs and drives, and so you do have docs and sheets drive, and you do have children. And essentially, Classroom is the thing that's in between. It allows you to manage the process of distributing resources to children, to learners, having those learners return resources to you so that you can critique them and give them some feedback, and basically closes that loop and creates a self-contained learning community through Classroom. So that's essentially what it is, in case anyone was wondering. And how do you set it up? So what I'm going to do is just talk through, I'm going to show you some bullet points, and then I'm actually going to demo this for you. Sorry. So start with the About page. So what is static? In fact, I've actually changed my mind. I'm going to do this the other way around. I'm going to show you first, and then it'll make much more sense when I'm back, as this is a recap on these slides. So I'm going to jump into Google Classroom, and let me just go home. And in fact, I'll show you the quickest way to get into Classroom is either through your launcher if you use a Chromebook, or it is just to type in classroom.google.com, and that will take you to your homepage of Classrooms. Now, when you are a teacher, sorry, when the first time you log in, it will say, are you a student or are you a teacher? And you will then choose to be a teacher. If you do mess that up and you accidentally select student, you will have to have a chat with your admin, and they'll be able to reset you to be a teacher. But don't worry too much about that at this point. So you choose teacher. When you are in Classroom, this will obviously all be blank, but you have this plus sign up at the top right-hand side of the screen. So you click on that plus sign, and you have two options. You can either join a class or create a class. Now, students don't have the option to create a class. They will only have the option to join a class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how quick it is to create a class now, and then I'll show you one which I've got pre-prepared with some extra information in it. So I'm going to create a class. Class webinar test. Now, it has section and subject, but you might want to say secondary. I think that's a more of an American term, the idea of a section. And then the subject, let's say, for example, we're doing science. So let's do that, and then we create our classroom. Super easy, super quick to create a classroom. You get some default images on the top of your classroom here. And you can actually change that. You can select a different theme if you want to. Actually, really like this theme, it's really cool. Or you can upload a photo. Now, one of the ideas that a lot of teachers use is when they are uploading a photo, sorry, is they might actually create a photo, and it could be a class photo, so they might take photos of the kids and a photo of the class and actually upload that photo as the banner. Or indeed, I've seen some people upload an image of their timetable and actually upload that as the photo, just to remind people. So it's up to you how you want to do that, but essentially we have this top banner, the name of the class, and the teacher at this point is the teacher, the single teacher in this class as well. And then there are three tabs. So there's the Stream tab, there's the Students tab, and there is the About tab. Now, just for your information, if you're talking to students and helping them set up Classroom, where it says students on your teacher version of Classroom, it actually says classmates on the student version of Classroom. So it's just worth knowing that. So we are going to click on About, and we're going to actually start on About. And the About page is a very static page, and essentially what that means is if you imagine the stream being like Facebook or a blog, where the most recent post will be at the top of this page and all of the posts you add will kind of push everything down, you can lose things in that stream. I'm going to show you how not to. So if there's anything really static you want, then you can put that into the about. Webinar test, this is a science class. The room, we're going to be in the cloud. And what it does automatically is it creates a folder called webinar test class. So this is a folder in my drive where all of the information, all of the resources are stored, and I can see it through Classroom. And I could, if I wanted to, actually go into my drive, and I can, in fact, find it on my drive. So I always love the fact that Google is really good at finding stuff for me. So if I can't remember where I've actually put my folders, there's my Classroom one, I can find them really quickly. So what do we call it? We just called it the webinar test class. That would be around here somewhere. So it creates a folder in here for me, and I can also access that folder directly through the about page as well. Sorry. Some assignments, I will be able to view calendar of those assignments. So I'll actually be able to see when the due dates are, and I will also be able to open it in Google Calendar if I want to. So I'm going to save that. And if I wanted to add class materials, so for example, I might, because this is a static page, I might want to put in the term overview. So I could upload a Google Doc with a term overview, or if I really want to do, I could even make a video, which is an explanation of this class or whatever we're going to do, and add that as a video. So I can add any kind of attachment, file from Drive, YouTube, or a link. So let's just cancel that for the moment. And this is a really important part of this, is that on this small tab here, on the left-hand side, I am going to invite other teachers. So this is the part where I can have multiple teachers in my class. So I'm going to show you how that works when I go into a different classroom, but this is how I do it. This is where I invite new teachers. So let's look at students. There are two ways. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. There are two ways to work with students and get them into your classroom. One of the ways is to invite students by email. So if your admin has set up email class groups and things like that, then you can actually invite students directly by email. The other way is to use this class code. Now, lots and lots of software, educational software uses this, where you have a class code. So essentially, what you ask the students to do is to, they go to classroom.google.com, and they click on the plus sign, and then they join a class, and they add this code in there. So that will get them to the class. And then once they're in the class, I'm going to show you in a moment what that looks like. Finally, the stream. This is where everything appears, okay? So where I'm going to do all of my posts. So using this big plus button here shows you all of the different posts. So I've just got a quick question. What was the question? Okay, so Mark is having issues accessing Google Classroom. Classroom does need to be turned on by your administrator. So it's an admin setting. So if you're in a school that uses G Suite for Education, then you need to talk to your admin, and they will turn on Google Classroom for you, okay? So it is a setting within admin which will need to be turned on, or it may well been turned off in your domain, Mark. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do is, to make this a little bit more contextual and understandable, is I'm going to do a class which has some kids already in it. Now these kids are, imagine that they're called Test Learner 1, Test Learner 2, Test Learner 3, and Test Learner 4. So if I go back to my About page here, you can see that on here I've got this in my test classroom. I've actually invited another teacher. So I've got another account called Test. And I now have 2 teachers in this class, and you can see both teachers up here. Now you can see how this would be a really wonderful thing if you are team teaching. Obviously, that's a paradigm which is one that I've worked in for a long time and absolutely love. Or if you have somebody in as a test, as an additional teacher as well. So that's in the About part of the stream. So you invite that teacher, and you can have multiple teachers. I think the most I've seen is 5. but you can have multiple teachers. So in here, again, I've got my this information I've already showed you. And what I did is I added a class material. I did a little introduction video to the course, which I'm not going to show you because it's embarrassing. But I just recorded that on my phone, put it into Drive, and dropped it straight into there. So a little introduction to the course. So this page is static. It doesn't change unless you want to change it. And it's a really good place to put those kind of resources that students will need more and more. Now, if I jump on the Students tab, I've got a thing from Cheryl saying I'm cutting out a little bit. Just to let you know, Cheryl, in order to invite another teacher, it's on the About tab, and it's down here on the left. It says Invite Teachers. Okay, if it's cutting out too much, Cheryl, maybe try going back to the settings and dropping down the bandwidth that you're using just by 1. It could be something to do with bandwidth. So let's go back to the Students tab. So I've got my 4 students in here. And there are some really core bits of important information on the Students tab here. The first thing is you need to make a decision about whether you want students to post and comment, or only teachers can post and comment. Now, I've seen that you set up a classroom and say, actually, only I can put stuff on there. Now, that's okay. It's one way to distribute materials, and that's fine. But it certainly, for me, doesn't build a learning commons or a learning community. And I would always start, at least, by saying students can comment. And actually, I would probably give students the option to post and comment, so that they're allowed to put posts in there and ask questions themselves as well. So one of these 2 options I would recommend, but again, it's up to you. And I think the thing is, some people sometimes get a bit scared and think, oh, but if I let kids comment in this community, then they're going to abuse that privilege. And I always say, what would you do? How do you manage that kind of behavior in a live classroom? You do the same thing in this classroom. In fact, Google Classroom has actually given you a couple of extra tools, or one particular extra tool to help you do that. So you choose what you want in terms of level of student access to Classroom. I would normally go for students can post and comment. And I'm just going to show you here. Now, if test learner 1, who's my son, if he was naughty and he decided to put something naughty onto our stream, then I can actually click on him, select him, and I can mute him. So if I click on mute, that means that he can still submit work, so he still has to do all of the work, but he can't reply to classmates' work and he can't post or comment. So it might be that he does something silly, he says something on our stream which is not appropriate, so I have a discussion with him. I say, well, actually, you know what, for 2 days, I'm going to mute you so that you can't participate. Now, it is punitive, and it depends on your beliefs about how you manage classrooms and how you manage learning, but it is there as an option. Unfortunately, it doesn't work in real life. I can't mute my son. I've tried many times, but he keeps coming back. So we can mute people here, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to get Matt to be naughty shortly, but I'm going to show you that's one way to mute kids, and I'm going to show you something in a second as well. And something you can new feature in Google Classroom, it's a bit clunky at the moment, I'm sure it will improve, is you can add in guardians. If you wanted to add in the parents and guardians of these test learners, so if, for example, I went in here, I can add in a guardian. So let's just say test at training.com. So I'm going to add this in a guardian. If this child comes from a home where he maybe or she maybe doesn't live with a parent, you need to well. And what that means is that if you add guardians emails in, is you can actually send out a summary of the work which is being put on Classroom, whether that child has completed it or not, and what they have completed as well. So at the moment, it is slightly clunky because you have to do that. It's a pretty manual process. I do believe that they will, Google, the team will work on that to make it a more automated process and maybe get that information from your learning management system rather than from that does then allow you to email all guardians in one go, which is quite nice. So let's have a look at the stream. So Matt, do you want to jump into Classroom there? So Matt's in Classroom, and I'm in Classroom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the different things that you can do within Classroom. There are 3 types of posts. So if you come across to the plus sign down here, there are 3 types of post and one called reuse post. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start up here with create a question. So if you've ever used Google Forms and you want to do a longer questionnaire or a test or anything, definitely use Google Forms. But if you wanted a really quick snapshot of a question, you could do this. So how are you feeling today, class? We might just do it as a multiple choice. Super. So. Blech. I think that's how you spell blech. I'm feeling a little bit black today. So you can see up here I've got lots of options. I can actually give this question to this class, that's just this class. If I wanted to ask the question across all of my classes, I could actually do that by selecting more. Also, I can have the option to say, well, do I want to ask this question to all of my students? I've only got 4 of them in this class. Or do I want to select who's going to get this question? Now, for questions and things, it's not that important, I don't think. But when we do come to have a look at assignments, this is where you would be able to differentiate your assignments by actually choosing to whom you push out each assignment. We'll get to that very shortly. We've got the questions. I can put in some optional instructions. I can give a due date if I want to. I can also add a topic if I want to. Okay, so I'm going to call this one question wall, or questions. And then I have one more decision to make. Is, do I want the students to see the class summary? So if I say yes, I want the students to see the class summary, that means that they can all see how everyone else has answered. If I don't want them to, I can just toggle that off. So if you can see the class summary and you're asking a question which somebody might think, oh, I'm just going to sit back and see what everyone else says before I answer, then you can toggle that so kids can't see the class summary. I'm going to leave it on for now. And I'm going to now ask that question. So that question will now appear onto Matt's screen. So he has a stream was updated, and he can see that question. So what I want him to do now is he's going to answer it, and he's going to submit. So hopefully in a second we're going to see that the number from done and not done will change to 1 and 3. I hope. Any second now. He's only sitting. Here we go. He's sitting next to me using using a Chromebook. So just a few seconds for that to travel across the internet. I can then actually look at that, and I can see a little bar graph of who's answered what. So Matt can also see the bar graph, but what Matt can't do, which I can, which is neat, is I can actually, obviously I've only got 1 kid who's answered this at the moment, is I can click on an answer and I can see who has answered that. So when I clicked on that bar, this test learner 1 is the person who's answered it. No one has answered the other one so far. So if you want to have a really quick quiz, I guess, then you can certainly do that. You can do it just to gather some really quick information. Sorry. So using the questions is a really nice, quick way to get some information or do a quick quiz. Again, if you're going to do anything more in depth, I would suggest Google Forms rather than the question classroom, but it does have a place in the learn. So the next thing I'm going to show you is not actually assignments, because that's the most complex one, I guess. An announcement. So an announcement is simply a piece of information which is going to go out to all of the students in my classroom, or selected students. So don't forget your permission slip for the science excursion next week. A topic, I can just do general notices, or I can create topics, and that's going to be really important shortly, and I'm going to tell you why. But I can create topics so that I can organize my stream. So let's put that under general notices for now. What I might do is go to Drive, and I could then attach that permission slip into my classroom. So I don't actually have a permission slip ready to go, but what I do have is, none of these, this one, not that one either. This one will do. So I can attach anything, a doc or whatever, and I can just send that out. So the kids will have that. They could then print that out if they've lost their permission slip. So I'm going to post that, and that's going to just appear in the classroom for Matt to have a look at. Now, as you can see really quickly, it actually starts to fill up the stream. Okay, and that's one of the dangers. Matt, can you just tell me that you have already handed it in, please? That's one of the dangers, I think, of the stream, is that it becomes really busy, it gets full. And what happened in the original classroom was that there was no option, probably 6 months now. This brilliant thing came in, which was topics. And essentially what that meant was that you could then add a topic to a post. So you could go and just click on general notices, and it will filter down just to general notices. And test owner one has told me he's already handed it in, which is great. Thank you for that. So in the past, when I was teaching French to year 12, I would actually create separate classrooms for separate topics because there was just too much going into the stream. And so I would have a politics one, I'd have a grammar one, I'd have a general discussion one, and actually different classrooms for different topics. But now that the topics have come in and been integrated into Classroom, it just means I can filter that really, really well. Have we got any questions, Matt? Are we okay? So the last thing, yes, actually some really, Shelley, really nice comment. That would be great to use as an exit ticket. The whole question thing, absolutely great idea. Yeah, use that as an exit ticket and gather that data, which is great. Sorry, excuse me. And the last thing is about creating an assignment, but I'm going to get to that. I'm going to come back to that shortly. So what I'm going to do is just jump back into the slides because I just want to go over a couple of things. Then I'm going to take you to the next level of how you can actually use pedagogically Classroom quite powerfully. So start with the About page. What is the static resource that you can put in there? What's the stuff that's going to stay constant? You can have to add a co-teacher, so you go into the About and invite a teacher. Manage your students. Do you want them to reply, comment, post? So make that decision. You can change that decision at any point, so you can give them permission to comment if you had originally not. Work in the stream, make sure you create some topics, and that's a really good way to organize things. I'm going to show you a couple of examples in the tick. And create a template classroom to collaborate with other teachers. So this is something I'm going to come back and show you now. So this is a little bit tricky to get your head around, not for some very smart people like you who are watching a webinar at 6:30 at night, but essentially if you imagine the scenario where I'm a year 9 science teacher and I'm working collaboratively. I teach my own class, but I work collaboratively with some of the other science teachers and we create assignments together. So just a good practice, I guess, is I'm just going to come back to my overall classrooms, is creating a template class. So imagine this. I'm teaching year 9 science next week. And I'm going to show you this assignment in more detail shortly. And then my co-teacher, Cameron, sorry, not my co-teacher, he is another year 9 teacher. He's going to see his kids on Wednesday and wants to give them the assignment on Wednesday. And then my other friend who is a teacher, Lisa, she sees her kids on Friday and she wants to give them all the same assignment. This is the year 9 assignment, but they're getting it at different times. So what we could do is we could each go into our classroom, we could each create our assignment, and we could each just give it put it out when we're ready to do that. But imagine that next year, we want to use a very similar assignment. We just want to tweak a few things, but essentially we're going to use a very similar assignment next year. One of the neat things within Classroom is creating a shared template class. And in that shared class, what you can do is you can create an assignment. So this is the I'm going to show you this assignment in much more detail shortly. But you create an assignment. So this is the recycled wastewater inquiry. This is the portfolio, et cetera, et cetera. So all of this has been set up. This assignment has all been set up. But then I'm not going to assign it. I am just going to save it as a draft. So this is a shared template class. So imagine Lisa and Cameron are in this class, but there are no students in this class. This is just like a filing cabinet. I'm into my own classroom. And it's now Monday, period 2, and I'm going to assign create this assignment. I'm going to push this assignment out to the students. I'm not going to start from scratch. I'm actually going to go to reuse post. And then it's actually already gone there because that's where I was. But then I choose the classroom I'm going to take the post from, and that is the shared template class, the one I've just showed you. And then I'm going to click on that and I'm going to reuse it. So now what happens is I get my version in my classroom, in my year 9 class, and I can now assign that to all of my students at the time I want to. When Cameron and Lisa then go into their classroom, they can do exactly the same thing. So rather than us all creating things from scratch in our own classrooms, we can actually create a template class, put our assignments and resources into the template class that post. So we can not only reuse it at the same time this week, but next year when we want to come back and use a similar resource, probably not an assignment or a test, but it might be another resource or a research task, we can reuse the post from last year from that template classroom. So it's just a nice way to share resources and work collaboratively. So I just want to do a couple more examples of how you actually create a learning commons. And what I mean by learning commons is if you Google it, you'll see lots of libraries, for example, and universities are using what they call learning commons. And that means that it's essentially a space where students can learn collaboratively. And I think that Classroom is a really, really nice way to do that as well. So I'm going to give you some ideas about how you might support a learning commons using the stream. So for example, what you could do is a daily provocation. So what I love about provocation is it really gets students thinking. So let me just jump back into my classroom. So Matt's in classroom ready to answer this, but I could add a daily provocation. So I could create an announcement, and I'm going to send this out to all of the kids in this class, and I'm going to say, watch this video. Sorry, global warming. I believe we should still use cars as much as possible. But the idea, obviously, of a provocation is that you're there to provoke people. So what I'm going to do is I can add a YouTube video. So I can click on the little YouTube sign, and I can look for global warming. Obviously, I would always recommend that if you are going to use if you're going to use any YouTube videos, you watch it all the way through to the end before you share it with students. This one's probably a little bit long, actually, but I'll just add it anyway. So I can go under the top of provocations. So then I can post that on, let's say I post it on Sunday night, and I say to the kids, okay, you guys, by the end of this, by the end of tomorrow, I want you to watch this and actually react to it. So you can do a daily provocation. So that post goes out, and then that appears on Matt's stream, and he can watch that video, which he's not going to do right now, but he can watch that video, and then he can put his comment onto that provocation and really start students discussing and creating a discussion board. And again, because I've tagged it as provocation, it means that I can actually click on the topics and filter down to just all of the provocations. So that's, again, a really useful way to use those topics. So a daily provocation, I think, is a really powerful thing to get kids discussing. What about a weekly wondering? I'm showing you all of my notes here. But a weekly wondering. So again, the same thing is I might use a video, or I could use an image, or just a simple question, or just say, what have you wondered about this week? What have you really wondered about this week? So again, I'm creating the post, and I'm getting all of the students, sorry, I'm getting all of the students to answer those themselves. Same thing as the question wall. So I might actually create, I'll do it now. So say we're doing a topic, and that topic might be recycled water, for example. And I'm just going to say recycled water, question wall. And that idea that you guys, I'm sure, do already, where you have kids putting post-it notes with questions up on the door with questions they have, and I might just post that. So any student who's got a question just adds it into there, and then I can again filter the question wall later on, and we can answer some of those questions together. So I'm just going to answer a question right now. So can I just have a look at that, Matt? The teachers you share templates with need to be paired with your class, or do you start a new classroom and invite them? So the way it works is you create a template classroom, and you invite all of the people that you want to collaborate with, all of the teachers you want to collaborate with. So you might have your whole, say you're in a big school and there's 5 or 6 year 9 science teachers, you could put them all into that template classroom. You're then on your own in your class, so you might have 9V is your science class. You are on your own, you don't have to invite them to that class. And what you're essentially doing is creating the assignments in the template classroom, where everyone can then go and get them and use them in their own classrooms. So it's really like a collaborative, what's it called? Filing cabinet. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, so Rebecca's asked the question: can students link up with children in other schools and use the Learner Commons? There are definitely ways to do that. You can create a classroom in your domain, so that means within your school, and you can invite other schools to be part of that classroom if they are whitelisted or if you're in the same domain. So that's something that you'd have to talk to your admin about. At the moment, sorry guys, at the moment it's just within your domain or a whitelisted domain. So if the school down the road you guys want to collaborate, or indeed a school overseas, you want to collaborate and use Classroom to do that, you definitely can. There's a little bit of admin needs to happen where the admin says, okay, we're going to whitelist this other school domain. And then you can definitely do that. And I think it's, for me, where I used to use Google Plus Communities, you have to, it's a social media thing, so kids should really be over 13 to use Google Plus. So there's all of those tricky questions around it. I really like Classroom because it's a little bit more contained, but it's a great question. So sorry, whitelisted just means that your admin person, so you're in a domain, whatever your school's name is, or it could be the Catholic school system or a state system or whatever. Whitelisted just means that your admin person says, yep, we're going to let our partner school in Indonesia, we're going to let them access our classroom. So you can't do that. It's just your admin person has to let you do that. But again, something I know Google and just recently allowed people to create classrooms using only Gmail. So for community groups and not-for-profits and things like that. So it's definitely doable. Okay, moving swiftly on. So getting our, you can, have a learner as mission controller for the week, so get the kids to choose the questions or the provocations, so actually give them some power in that, and also using it as critique. So if, for example, we were working on something, so let's say I've just done a draft, just doing an announcement, I've just done a draft, or draft, piece of writing. What I could do is as a teacher, create this as a please critique topic and post that. And then what the kids can do is essentially they can add a comment in there saying, can you please have a look at this work? And not for me necessarily to critique them, but actually for the students themselves to critique each other. So I think that's a really powerful thing for students to do and to build again that whole community. At the moment, there is a slight issue with it, which I've flagged. And that is that kids, when they are replying to that kind of post, is they can't attach anything yet. Really useful if kids can, they can put a link to a document in there, but they can't attach directly, so through a comment. So again, something really important, this question mark down here, if you think there's something that should be in Classroom, then you click on that question mark and you send the feedback. I know people believe Google listens to feedback. I'll come to that in 2 seconds. So I know that people never believe that people listen to feedback, but I know the guy who works for Google in London at the moment who reads through the feedback from the product teams and they prioritize it and they make changes all the time. So if you've got extra feedback, then definitely use the question mark down here to send some feedback. One of the bits of feedback I had was that you had to add topics when you posted. And I was like, I want to be able to add topics before I post anything, and that's now an option which is there. So Cheryl, I think, has just asked about can we print things out? We can. There are a couple of ways you could print things out if you wanted to. I guess the goal is to be paperless, but if you wanted to do your provocation and print that out, you could copy the link and then put the link in to a different page so that you separate it. Sorry. And then you could right-hand click and print that page. So yeah, you could print things. The idea is to go as paperless as possible, but yeah, you certainly can print out web pages like that. Okay, so we're running out of time as ever. Making learning visible. We're going to have a couple of quick activities, and what I've got is some graphic organizers because I love graphic organizers. And so I've got here, which is this one's a Venn diagram. Sorry. This one's a Venn diagram. I've got a graphic organizer slide here, which is a cause and effects diagram. I've got a graphic organizer slide here, which is a solid liquid gas, so phases of matter sorting activity. So you have to sort the spinning baseballs to show what particles would look like as a solid, as a liquid, and a gas. I've got one here which is putting together a flow chart. And I've got another one here which is a mystery and moving hexagons around and coloring them in and trying to figure out what kind of pizza you should buy. So it doesn't matter what the graphic organizer is. There is a link to it in the description. But essentially what I want you to think about is this. I've got a graphic organizer and I want to, it's just a quickish activity and I want to see how that's happening. There are two things you can do. You create a template graphic organizer and you can either create multiple slides of the same task and share that with others in the classroom so they can all edit. So essentially, if I had 25 kids in the class, what I could do is copy this first Venn diagram, I could share this slide to the whole class so everyone can edit. They all grab a slide and they add their name into the name box and they start editing. That's one way to do it. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And the other way to do it is I could create a single slide and create a copy for each student. So there are some pros and cons for both of those. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a quick assignment. And I'm going to do this as, we'll just do the Venn diagram on Matt. So I'm going to put this out to Matt as a Venn diagram. I'm going to say there's no due date because we want to do it straight away. Now I haven't actually got a science topic, so I'm going to create a topic which is science here. And I'm going to attach from Drive this slide deck. So I go back to my classroom. It's called Graphic Organizer. It's at the top because I've just used it. Graphic Organizers, I'm going to select that. I'm going to add this. So I've now got that slide deck there. Now this is the important bit and really powerful bit in Classroom is students can view the file, or students can edit the file, or I can make a copy for each student. So what I'm going to do is, because I've got enough slides in this, and it's just a quick activity, I've got enough slides in this one that each kid can have a slide each, I am going to actually let students edit the file. So what that means is I click here, and I'm going to assign that. So that's going to be pushed out to Matt, and it will arrive on his stream. And essentially, he's going to be able to edit and access this slide deck here. So when he does get into that slide deck, he will then be able to start doing the Venn diagram and actually start moving things around so that I can see that. So we're just waiting for that to appear on his classroom, which it has. He's going to open it now. There we go. And so what you'll see appearing up here, now I know I've got an anonymous iguana, anonymous llama, and an anonymous wombat already there, is if I click on this graphic organizers, you'll be able to see that I've got a copy of that graphic organizer now, which Matt is able to edit. So he is, just let us load, he is able to move these around, essentially demonstrate his understanding. So I can see, so he's currently moving the circle around, that's okay. So I can see what is happening and the kind of understanding. So when we talk about making learning visible, really powerful way for us to, oh, you're on slide 2, that's why I can't see you, right? That's okay. So I can see Matt, or Test Learner 1, is actually thinking about, right, which of these things is about a whale, which of these things is about a fish. So you can imagine you can actually use these in any way. So what I didn't do is I didn't share the graphic organizer by clicking on the share button and sharing it with the kids. Classroom did all of the hard work for me. So it's a really great way for me to make learning visible, I guess. Now I like doing it in one slideshow because then I can quickly go down and see, all right, let's have a look here, who's working here, who's doing the stuff here, what are these guys doing? And I can have that up on the screen. Now I can see what you've done, can you explain it to the whole class? So for me, that's a really nice way to help to make learning visible. So graphic organizers and things like that. Now there is a really good, a different option, as I said before, is that you can create a single slide drawing and create a copy for each student. That's really powerful, but what that does mean is you have to click through all of the different sorry, all of the different icons. You have to open up each child's individual slide deck. So you're going to end up with 25 slide decks open. And if it's just for the sake of doing something simple like a graphic organizer or you know, a sorting task or whatever it is, I actually just like making 25 copies or however many copies you need of this single slide and sharing that single slide deck so all of the kids can edit it. Now, where the option to actually, sorry, get the right slide deck, where the option to create a single copy is super powerful of learning software. So I'm going to show you this. Sorry, I'm also going to take a quick sip of water. Sorry, guys. So what I've done is I have created a portfolio template. So I actually did this because Matt, in fact, at his school is currently doing a project on should we use recycled wastewater for drinking. I thought that's a great idea. It's a really interesting project. And what I wanted to do is to show, okay, I want to grab evidence of learning. So I want my kids to do a project based on should we use recycled wastewater for drinking. So I built, so the first thing I did was to build this slide deck. So in this slide deck, I've got the title, I've got a slide for introducing yourself with a terrible picture of myself on it. And then slide 3, I've got the challenge. Slide 4, so the challenge here, sorry, is you are to decide based upon your scientific understanding whether you think we should recycle wastewater for drinking in Melbourne. You will create a short film to convince your audience of your point of view. So I've got the task up here. On slide 4, I've also got the, sorry, the rubric. So this rubric, I am passionate about the Solo taxonomy. I should write that in case you don't know what it is. You guys can go and Google that. The Solo taxonomy is a way of assessing. Essentially, when we look at the rubric, pre-structural means the learning outcome or the work shows no understanding, shows one piece of understanding, multiple bits of understanding but not linked. It's multi-structural. Relational is that all of these ideas are linked, and extended abstract is that it goes beyond the task and brings in other information or hypothesis. That is a whole other webinar. Don't worry about this, just use whichever rubric you want to. But my criteria 1 is demonstration of scientific understanding. I do not use any science to back up my arguments. I refer to one scientific idea. I mentioned several scientific ideas. I link several scientific ideas to the challenge question to support my argument. And extended abstract is I bring in scientific ideas from scientific topics to support my argument. And I also like to always add on a rubric, move me on advice. How do you move on from, if you're at pre-structural level, how do you move on to unistructural? So if you're not using any science to back up your argument, I would suggest that you look at the material provided and highlight one scientific idea. Okay? Write a list of the main scientific ideas found in the material provided. If you've got that, you mentioned several ideas, create a flow chart showing how each scientific idea is linked to the question. And if you already got that, you can refer to previous science topics or science ideas you've seen which support your argument. So I've only got one criteria here. You could have, I never go over 3. I think 3 is more than enough. But you could have several different criteria there. But anyway, this is going to be a copy of this for the kids, so the kids have always got access to that. Then I want the kids to say, right, what are the big concepts in science which we're going to learn? And so what would be a big concept in water? What's part of that recycling thing in water? What was that? Flocculation. I was just wanting to say that. It's a funny word. Flocculation. So all of these scientific concepts, what I would do is I'd say, okay, use the following slides to help you to make notes on the scientific concept. So each kid is going to get their own copy of this portfolio. So if Matt gets this portfolio, for example, he might make put the concept in here, do an explanation in his own words, put an example in, and possibly a diagram if it wants one. And if there are 5 concepts, it's just right-hand click on the slide, and they duplicate that slide, so they can do that 5 times. I'd also do a timeline, and depending on how you want to work with children, is you might fill in this timeline and tell them what they should have done. I've seen it. I've done it once where I actually put little boxes down here saying all of the tasks that needed to happen, and the kids sorted them into the timeline and say, well, I'll do this, and then I'll do that, and I'll do that. So you could have a timeline in there. The type up their piece of work. and then I can go in and I can highlight stuff and insert a comment, and I can leave feedback to the students in their portfolio. I've given them a storyboard for the video. I've also given them the space to put the script in there. I've also given them a space to put the finished video. And I've also done a self-reflection video. So every so often, maybe not every lesson, but every couple of lessons, I might get the students to do a little self-reflection video on their device, on their Chromebook, or on their tablet device. And actually just, because that goes straight in the drive, is they can insert a video. So they go insert video from Drive, sorry, from Google Drive. And I did a little self-reflection on my phone just before, and they click on that, and boom, they put the self-reflection video into the slide. So you're actually collecting everything. You're collecting self-reflection, you're collecting evidence of scientific concepts and understanding, you're collecting draft work that the kids are doing, you're giving the comment feedback in there, and you're collecting their final product. And at the end, you have got space for teacher feedback and feed forward, sorry guys. And the teacher feedback and feed forward could be written, but equally it could be a video. Record a video of yourself talking about the kids' work, bang it into there, and it's all in this beautifully self-contained portfolio. So how do I use Classroom to make that happen? In fact. So in fact, I don't even need to rewrite it because I've already created it in the template Classroom. So if I go to reuse a post, I'm going to do the recycled water and wastewater inquiry. Now, because I'm doing it at a different time to Cameron and Lisa, I can add my own due date and say, actually, guys, this is due in a couple of weeks, on the 11th. So hopefully I'm back. I just dropped off the network there for a second. So I'll see if that can come back. I think, yes, we're back. All good. So reuse that post I've already prepared. I'm going to then push this out and reuse this post. Sorry, guys. I think my computer has caught my flu. I'm going to give it a due date of a couple of weeks' time. Well, I've gone quite far. I've gone a couple of months, a couple of weeks' time. And this is the important bit. I'm not sure where I dropped out, but let me just have a make sure I go back over this. Is I've added the portfolio, the template, and I am making a copy for every student. Okay, and that's the important bit. Is it's not that students can see this one file. It's not that students can all edit this one file in the way I let them edit the graphic organizers. It's that I can make a copy for each student. Okay, and I think I keep dropping in and out a little bit, so I'm going to assign that now. And what we'll see is now I've done the assignment. Just see if we are. See if that's going to come back. Oh, let me just. You can hear me. Oh, when I've dropped out. Sorry, I think I know what's happened. Is when I have dropped out. Hopefully. Yeah, okay, thanks, Melanie. So you guys should be able to hear me. I think when I dropped out, it actually stopped doing my screen sharing. So I've just talked about things that you couldn't see. So let me just delete this and I'll do it one more time. Hopefully this will this will work now. So I'm just waiting for you to be able to see me. You will be able to view this again. Yeah, same link. So okay, let's have a look. See. So last go. Let's see if we can get a third time lucky. So I'm going to reuse the post. I'm going to get my inquiry, my template. I'm going to use that. And then I am going to say, okay, set a due date of a couple of weeks' time. Let's say the 11th. There we go. Right, I can see that you can see video now. Just to answer your question, Shelley, I'm actually sharing from Google Hangouts. So this is Google Hangouts or YouTube Live, and I'm sharing from that. So I've got my date in there. The topic is going to be assessment. And the thing that I've said, which is super important, I've said it 15 times, is that we need to make a copy for each student. So I'm going to assign that. And what's going to happen is Matt is going to see, all of the students will actually see their assignment. And I, sorry, excuse me. Let me just get to where I'm looking for. So essentially what I've got is all of the students are here. So when Matt decides to turn, he does some work, he can turn in, I've just asked him to turn in his work without actually doing anything on it, but that's okay. There are two ways, I can see what's happening. Is here, I can click on this folder, and this is the folder that is automatically being created in my drive, which has each copy of that student's work. And you can see that Classroom is really clever. So it has appended the name of the learner to the end. So they've each now got their own copy with their name on the end of it as well. So that's one way to see it. The other way to see it is just to click, I'll go to Matt's actually, because then I can see him live in there as well, is just to click in here, and you'll then be able to see that's Matt's work, and you can tell that because it's got his name up here, and he will be able to add in all of his own ideas and his own pictures and his own research into that. So I can see everything that happens in his portfolio as well. So we can go through a whole, he's turned it in, which just means that he essentially, I can now add a grade to it if I want to. Again, it's up to you. You can add up to 100, you can add a grade. I'm gonna give him 99. That for me doesn't mean anything though, to be honest. Like I don't find that, I'm really, really much more interested about jumping onto Matt's work and say going down to one of his bits of work and leaving him comments. So I'm going to highlight here, and I'm going to go insert comment and leaving him that formative assessment. That for me is so, so powerful. All right, guys. So listen, we've gone over time, and I am really out of voice now. But just to essentially, Matt, can you just check for any more questions before we finish? Just to essentially summarize, is create a template portfolio to capture evidence of learning. Include the challenge and project, the assessment rubric, the knowledge and concept point. So that Googleable and unGoogleable information. So, you know, you're looking for both, I'll answer this in a, sorry guys. You're looking for both Googleable stuff in those concept maps, but also my own interpretation of that. So what's unGoogleable? The self-managing or a managed timeline, evidence of process and reflection, and final product, as well as the space for teacher feedback and feed forward. So Cheryl, just to answer your question, if I go back into my, sorry, left-hand click, not right-hand click. If I go back here, the way to get into that screen, sorry, I don't think I did tell you that. The way to get into that screen for this assessment is, I mean, I can click here and it will take me into all of the learners, like who's done it, who hasn't done it. If I click just on one done, that'll take me just to a screen with that one kid who's done their handed in their work here. So it's in the assignment. Now, in the past, it was a real pain in the derriere because you couldn't, you'd have to scroll all the way through the stream to find where your assignments were. But now, because I have tagged that as an assessment task, I just click on topics assessment tasks and it filters straight down to those assessment tasks. So I hope that answers your questions. It just remains two things. Is firstly for me to say thank you very, very much for giving up your evening for some professional learning. My Twitter handle is @chris@chris@chris@chris if you're interested in following me. If you want any follow-up questions, my email is chris@unstucklearning.com. And also, because Google are very interested in analytics, we do ask for feedback and from feedforward about how we can make the webinars even better. So please, 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 I put the link in for the evaluation form into the description, and the link is here for you to have a look at. Please, we do value your feedback. It does help us to make these better. Thank you so, so much for joining me tonight. Matt, come here. Come and say good night, everyone. So Matt has stayed up late at school to hang out and help me with this. So thank you, guys. Thank you, Matt. We hope you enjoyed it. Do come along to the rest of the webinars. Again, actually, I'll add another link into the description with the link to register for the rest of the webinars. Thank you so, so much. Have a great evening and good night.